Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Billah Shaitan ar-Rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and from ignorance. Rabbi Gfirli. May God forgive us for the for the sins that we're conscious of and the sins that we're not conscious of. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. I would like to begin this lecture with an initial acknowledgement of the higher power. You are listening to a human being that has, through a thorough analysis and journey of life, come to the conclusion and realization that we're inside a system, and this system has an admin. For me, what the ancients saw, the relationship that the ancients had with religion, I see that even if nothing about religion had ever passed on, the human intelligence would eventually come to a point where we would think about if the world has an owner. That moment will come. That means it doesn't matter if you've never heard anything about religion or if you've heard about religion. We're living at a time where it's the archaic revival of what the idea of God pointed to, of God, which is the system admin in man's mind. So keep that in mind. When I'm talking about the system admin, I'm talking about the higher power in this world. I also do acknowledge reality as simulated, and when I say higher power, I am actually referring to the original. So I do perceive it that we're all simulated beings in a simulation. I do acknowledge we're in a simulated testing zone, and I do acknowledge the original is present prior to the simulation. So in some sense, the higher power knows before you can ever. Before you know. Now, this title, the title for this lecture, I was looking at the idea of suffering. And how do we explain suffering when it's not just us in the room? There is a higher power, there's a system administration going on here. As far as I'm concerned, we are in a simulation, and the simulations are surveillance states. Now, there's some immediate things that come to mind, and then there's views of us looking at things deeper than they are. Deeper than they're acknowledged. So, the reason I'm talking about this is because human beings wonder about why suffering is allowed, and it's kind of like, certain atheistic circles have this view that if God allows suffering, how can it in some sense be a good God? And if he can stop suffering, do you understand? Like, so in some sense, why is there suffering? And then what is the value of this suffering? Okay. Now, in no way or shape or form, I'm here trying to say like I understand all sorts of suffering. I don't. I understand the suffering of my experiences so far. But I do have a fascination about trying to accurately observe the human situation. Now, pretty much you right now, as someone listening to me, have contextual options. Okay? Meaning that in some sense, how do we look at meaning in the moment? And prior to even looking at what suffering means, how are we holding the context to reality? Now, I think here human beings come to a crossroad. And the crossroad is simply this, that what do you consider to be the highest intelligence or a higher power? If you consider yourself to be a higher power, you're limited by your system. Okay? I can choose to imagine one day that I am king. I could just go every day, walk into coffee shops and get offended why people aren't bowing to me. But that's like the value of that view is personal. To my understanding, I look at reality and I'm like, okay, there's an ant. Okay, that's a kind of being. Now, compared to the ant, I'm a higher being. Now, wait a minute. What if I wonder if I'm in the ant's position? Do you understand? What if there are higher beings here right now? And what if we had the task of wondering what is the highest form of being? Because, believe it or not, the answer to that question, what is the highest form of being, is actually a being that is not limited to worldly form. Do you understand what Islam, like I'm Muslim, right? And what Islam is pointing at its core is not just behavioral tunage to, like, source code, but it's in some sense being like, hey, human, this is pretty much what Abraham, the prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, experienced. He went to his forefathers who were in some sense worshiping idols. Do you understand? Imagine going to your dad and telling him what your dad and what your ancestors did was wrong. And so Abraham had that moment where he went to his dad and all the people, who were around him, and he's like, guys, what are you doing? We as beings have an attention in this reality. Where our attention locks on, our reality gets limited. Do you know how let me tell you something that you don't know that's going on. And I no longer identify as a spiritual person. If somebody says, hey man, you seem spiritual. Do you have any spiritual experiences? I'll be like, forget spirituality. It's child's play. It's like you tell me, is it more important to have a relationship with a higher power, or is it more important to, in some sense, like talk to them? Okay, I'll give you an example. Imagine there's a company. Would you rather know the owner, or would you rather just be an employee that knows one manager or two managers behind the veil? It's nothing. Do you understand? I'm not trying to say that your spiritual experiences as whoever you are not profound. I'm just saying, when you look at this life, you cannot ignore the question of how are these beings here being activated? And are they in accordance to what sort of context to reality is their activation happening? A spiritual person, let me tell you this hilariously. Spirituality is the last stand of the ego. Do you know why? Because the ego knows it is not God. You know your limitation. Yet, if you accept you're limited, you in some sense cease to exist as that ideological force that's like, no man, I'm not limited. Do you understand? So, the conundrum here is really that what is important, and if the answer is still yourself, you are in the lesser earth. And you're gonna be like, what do you mean? Is this guy saying like me thinking I'm important is not important compared to something else? And I'll be like, yeah, I used to be in the same boat. Okay, I used to being seeking the most advanced state, my own most advanced state. But what tends to happen is that you realize your limitations, and then you realize how the higher reality actually has a limitless quality. I'll give you an example. Imagine somebody who's like a doctor, and imagine some kid in high school learning biology. Imagine the doctor is there and the kid who's learned some biology is there as well. The kid can say whatever, but the doctor has access to the actual reality. You understand? Similarly, when it comes to religious and spiritual people are realizing that they can have abstract identity. You understand? That means like, I don't have kids, but if I was raising them and imagine my kid came up to me, it's like, Dad, the birds and the wind and the angels, like the moment spoke to me. Do you know? Or imagine I see a kid that, like my kid suddenly, like, I don't know, did automatic writing and wrote like 100 books. I would be like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you letting this world deceive you by making you the center of attention? Do you understand? That means, have you ever thought about it? What's more important than you? Have you ever thought about it? That when you enter this life, it's a massive self-obsession to complete a to-do list till you leave? I see human beings everywhere. I see their eyes. I see the uncertainty and the certainty balancing out in regards to what the person decides. Trust me, I am human. I see the human. But the issue is, I also have what God has given us in Islam. It's called aql. And my intelligence makes the world, like if somebody's like, what's the purpose of intelligence? I'd be like, to get bored and update. And really, you get bored when they take the unknown variables from your life. Anybody who it needs to be a balance of known and unknown variables. If suddenly all the unknown variables go away, the person can become self-destructive. Did you know that? If you put the burden of figuring out all of reality on yourself, it can destroy you. This is why it's so important to know deep down and to be able to accept that you don't have all the answers. You see, a religious person is like, they acknowledge a king. Do you understand? A spiritual person thinks they are the king. That's the difference. That's why I'm telling you, I have more respect for a religious person, compared to a spiritual person. They could bring like some, yogi, shaman, somebody who has like crystals and I don't know, like, is dressed like nature or something, like whatever. Like they could bring somebody having the most spiritual experiences, and to me, I'm like, buddy, does it matter? Does it? What matters is what we're in the presence of. If right now I stepped out of my home and opened the door in the morning and I saw a giant, okay, I can't be like, there's no giant. I'm a giant compared to an ant. I'm going to ignore the fact that there's a giant in the room. You see, that's what the species has done. It has ignored what it has not actually attempted to comprehend. Because to actually attempt to comprehend what is going on in this reality, it makes you have to consider the dehumanized angles of it. Do you know? Like, you think, usually when I speak, I'm speaking to human beings about human stuff. But have you ever thought that this reality surpasses human limitation? That it is not the best chess move for humanity to interpret everything and accept just what it sees. Do you understand? That means if I tell you right now, you're like a terrible ping pong player, or if I tell you you're a great ping pong player, you know, I can tell you whatever, but it's up to you. Do you understand? To show who you are also. For me, life has become a performance in the presence of the higher power. That means if somebody says, Mr. Within, what's your opinion on your audience? I'll be like, my first opinion is that the creator of creation is watching, the original is watching the simulation. My first acknowledgement is that I am within a divine surveillance state. The next view is that as a simulated being, when I wonder about why have I simulated and why am I not an original being right now? Because if I was an original being, I couldn't complain about reality. I couldn't question reality. You see, God knows everything. So there is no room for doubt. But human beings are creatures of doubt. And we have this view that we need to be created in accordance to our moral perfection as a species, but that story could be way off. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying just because we think it means to be a good human being is to do this, doesn't mean that's a good human being. Really, I find personally, for a religious person, you are being held accountable by the ultimate. You understand? That means a religious person doing something right and getting rewarded will get way more blissed out than and when a religious person suffers, their suffering will be more intense, because it's as if when something bad happens, you're like, okay, this is God's will. What have I done wrong that I'm experiencing this? Do you understand? The weight of it is heavy. The weight of feeling you've let down that which has created you. You see, they've conditioned you to think that you are the conclusion of reality. Let me say it this way. Imagine you're a parent. I'm not a parent, guys. You know, don't judge me. But I have imagined, like I can imagine. I've had parents and I've seen people. Imagine you're a parent. Like, I honestly, when it comes to talking about the future generations, I kind of have that feeling. Just because you're not like the biological dad of the species doesn't mean you cannot care for the children of the future. You can always look at the development of human minds and kind of see the scale, see what they can handle and they can't. One of the most important things in reality is emotional maturity, which means understanding that every person has an emotional, let's say, response to their moment. When you go up to someone and you say, hey, you look good, you know, that leads to an emotional response, because it shifts the image and the context the person has. Your emotions actually contextualize you. So if I ask you right now, is suffering good or bad? You're not going to answer in accordance to like, okay, let me analyze this like a robot. You're going to be like, no, it feels bad. Why, like, I don't like suffering. Why should my species suffer? Why should animals suffer? Like, why should a deer get bitten, in some sense, by a gazelle? Why should a woodpecker, like, harass a tree? You know, why should human beings have, like, slaughterhouses? Do you understand? Like, when you look at reality, you've experienced some suffering, and that suffering is in some sense your reference for wondering about how others suffer. Like, imagine, like, this happens. There was this one example that comes to mind is from a show. Okay, there was this Japanese show called Winland Saga, and in the first season there is a prince in the show, that is very like the Persian word for it is loose. Like, the English word for it, no, I mean, technically it wouldn't be fit the English word, but it means like spoiled, like fragile, sensitive, okay, immature, okay. Now in the show you begin to see this immature, like this shot, like this unawakened prince, okay, and you begin to see you begin to see his development as a character. How when he's among certain soldiers, the soldiers laugh at him. Okay, the soldiers laugh at this prince, and they're like, "Man, this is this a prince or a princess in the show?" Like, they have that kind of like response to him. But later on, when that character, who's very like fragile and sensitive and weak and whatever, when he suddenly understands where he is and who he is, it completely shifts. He becomes like a next level character in the show. Now, going back to this idea of me telling you, like, imagine you're a parent, okay? And imagine, okay, I'll give it a different example. Imagine you are like a next level athlete, you're a teacher, okay? I don't know, let's say what example do I use? Let's say you're a gymnastics teacher or something, okay? You will realize that whatever, let's say you're a teacher, okay, you'll realize your student, okay, I got a better example. What am I saying, gymnastics? Like, imagine you're you're a master swordsman. Master swordsman. You know ways to hold a sword and move a sword. You know angles of it, moving that others don't have not even thought about. You're a master swordsman. You see, as they bring you like this, let's say, young prince. Let's say you're a master swordsman of the like a general of the imperial army, and the king's like, yo, I want you to teach this prince like how to fight. Okay? The master swordsman would at some point be like, unless this kid experiences a scenario of battle, it will not understand the intensity it needs to muster up. Okay? And then imagine there's a scene where this master swordsman just is like actually trying to like fight this kid with a sword, and the kid's getting startled and scared, but the master swordsman knows the limits. And eventually the kid understands, without suffering, there isn't the accurate feedback to reorganize, to update. So that's why I was saying, like, imagine you're a parent, you got to realize at some point suffering is needed. Like, how does a dad, let's say, raise a son compared to how does a mother raise a daughter? Okay, for example, I saw this video. It was incredible, all right? It was showing that the mother's role is unconditional love. So whenever the child falls down, the mother runs up and hugs the child and cares for the child. Now there's this scene where it shows there's this father and there's like this very young kid, like his young son, on a chair. The son falls down from the chair and the son is too short to get up. Not too short, but it's a challenge for it to get up on the chair, right? The mother wants to lift up the child on the chair. The father says to the mother, stop. This kid has to confront the intensity and realize with his own effort he can reach like a result. Okay, so the father doesn't let the mother help the kid up onto the chair, and the kid tries a couple times, eventually gets up on the chair, and then the father claps for the kid, whatever. So when it comes to the idea of suffering, this is where it's strange, where from one angle we're like, why is it happening? Why is everybody suffering? What the fuck? You know, like we're freaking out. But from another angle, if we don't suffer, how do we tune? You think a swordsmith makes a sword by just like not doing anything to it. The dude hammers it parallel to the electromagnetic field of the earth. So it is obvious that we can't grow if we don't suffer. But if we choose we don't want to grow, then why is there suffering? Oh my God. So we have to be careful as a species that if our suffering stops, that's when reality is turning into a photograph when it used to be a film. So suffering has a role, but its significance is in regards to an advancing being. Do you know, like I know deep down, I haven't paid like that, I haven't paid the cost yet, but maybe one day in the future, you know, God willing, you know, I will be directed there, right? But I haven't been like one of those people who's like, well, yo man, why am I podcasting? Give me a microphone. I'm gonna go from orphanage to orphanage, or and talking about advanced civilizations and advanced humans to like, do you know what I'm saying? Like I haven't done the external work of like, drawing crowds and whatever. But I have done the work of the communication part. Do you understand? So the reward is to some degree based on what I considered possible in the beginning. You know, I kind of like, I think deep down because I feel shy around people, feeling like talking in front of the whole world probably made me feel like super shy too. So I kind of like, was like, okay, and I also realized it's better to get people to focus on the content than the speaker. Like, who am I? If you're someone who's like, yo man, this guy's cool or something, trust me, every person we have held in high regard, every person we've looked up to, I'm telling you, you don't know how they look down on themselves. You don't know how they are, this was something that it took me a while to realize. For example, a naive young man looks at a beautiful woman and is just like, you know what I mean? Just their brain projects perfection. But they don't realize there is a human here. There's even a soul here. Do you understand? That there's people who, I'm telling you, like, when I see humans, I'm not just seeing some physical creature. Like, how dare you hide underneath your physical existence? Not, when you, like every other human being, have in some sense a mind that is in some sense working with relationships it has of the past, present, and even visualizations of the future. You don't know how life moves. At first I didn't, I didn't consider it, but when I realized the significance that there's a system admin to this existential system we're in, it was mind-blowing because everything suddenly had an explanation. I'll give you an example. In high school, I had, I would say, a semi-crush. Like, it was out of control. I had a crush on so many people. But there was this, let's say, secondary crush I had, okay? And that only happens when the mind can see a situation with that person. But anyways, there was this very beautiful girl. Her name was Hillary. Okay. She was blonde, very fit. And I don't know, like, as the alumni, like, I kind of, like, saw her years after graduation. She had become anorexic. And I don't know, just as a man, I just face palmed myself. And I was like, why? Someone so beautiful suddenly did this to themselves. And I realized, just because you have a beautiful body doesn't necessarily mean you have a beautiful mind. That means, like, a person can look nice, but they might not be nice. A person can look professional, but they might not be professional. A person may look kind. Everybody's like, what a kind person. But you don't know that if that person is kind to themselves. Like, I'll give you an honest example of this. I've been giving these talks, let's say it's gone a decade. It was 2014 they started, so we're in 2025, like 11 years. In these 11 years, I would say maybe 60% of it, not 60, I would say 40% of these 11 years when I was giving the talks, let me say it this way. It's like I was being very nice and to the viewers, to just outside, but internally you don't know moments how I have hated myself. They're like, what a loving dude. It's like, you don't know how I hate myself. I have hated myself in colossal proportions. I have seen myself worthless. Do you know moments I've gotten angry at people outside and I've just left the room, and in my mind, I've started beating the shit out of myself. You don't understand. It's like, it's very difficult to say, if a person is, inclined, is optimistic or pessimistic, when from one angle they care for the outcome, but from another angle they're hating the process that's leading to the outcome. Somebody once defined discipline as serving your future self. But the human being is not just a reasonable creature. Do you understand? Our emotions come out of nowhere. Thoughts we zoom in too much make us emotional. There's moments where I've like turned on the microphone and I've been like, the advancement of humanity, the advancement of civilization. I've talked about the greatness of the future. Then after the talk, I've just ended the talk and I've weeped about all the fucked up parts I didn't tell people. And they all classify in dehumanization. You don't understand the bizarre savageness, and there's like a physical cruelty, like somebody hitting you or physically doing something. And then there is, I'm sorry, but this is going to sound bizarre, a situational cruelty. And if somebody says, Mr. Within, why did God, the system admin you're talking about, create suffering? Why couldn't we just be like perfect? And I'll tell you why. Because we are not angels. In Islam, it is so profound. You don't understand. Entering the metaphysical implication of Islam is like entering a sacred mosque. You have to take off your shoes like you got to put your ego outside, and you're entering a place of worship. Do you know what that means? If right now I'm giving this talk, right? If I felt You don't understand. The higher power is not just an idea. Emotionally, it's like a peasant in front of the mightiest king. I cannot tell you. It's not possible to talk about God and not feel shame. But the solution to that shame is repentance. And going back to this idea of situational cruelty, it's like the child has to fall down a couple times to learn how to walk. And it's like, if we ask, why does the child need to fall at all? Why doesn't it just walk? Because if it just walked, it wouldn't care for the value. And this is the reality. If you are saved by something else, you don't care for what was here. Do you understand? Like a child lost in the mall, and suddenly the child finds its parents, it doesn't care about the mall anymore. My observations on suffering, and sorry, I forgot where I was building this up to. I was trying to tell you, in Islam, there's a metaphysical depth. And there is this view, I'll share it, that the angels came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? In a sense of question, as if, God, O Creator, you've created angels, perfect beings, beings that can't sin, they are purely your divine will. Why did you create humans? Now this is where it gets interesting, but I'm sailing through theological waters here. The reason is because man is in the middle. You are neither an angel, you are neither a beast. You're not oblivious savageness, and you're neither divine perfection. And what I find, if people, they're like, why did you, I'll be like, let me tell you this. I became Muslim for a personal situation and specific reason and something that happened. But after reading the Quran, I have found infinite reasons that if I had heard this passage, I would have become Muslim instantly. Listen to the passage. I'll do my best in sharing it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, and forgive me, I don't know the exact language, but this is too important not to talk about, says, if mankind, if this current civilization, imagine civilization right now, if everybody stopped sinning, which means everybody became angels, this civilization would be wiped out, as if delete the program and bring in a new program where there's still sin. And I was like, what did I just read? And it blew it revolutionized my attention to the fact that we are not here to be a beast or an angel. We are here to be one of the rare positions in creation that has a relationship with the Creator. That means if you, let's say you're like as a Muslim, I can't go to a squirrel and I'll be like, why aren't you praying every day? And the squirrel just stares at me and like just jumps onto another branch. It's as if the human species, by its intelligent position, has the responsibility of its design. I am not giving this lecture to the human species because I like to. No, because I am human. Just like you, just like all of us, just roaming on this planet, not assembling, not learning from beehives and anthills of how mighty the species can be. They say if you want to solve a problem, you cannot do it with the same level of thinking. So you cannot solve the reality from the same level of thinking that created it. You cannot solve the problem. So guess what? If human beings have a problem, look at the design of the level of thinking. So where I'm going with this is Islam, which to me is source code of the system admin that is not limited to anything in the system, is saying that if you guys became perfect, civilization would be reset again. Just so that there is sinners. And so this made me be like, wait a minute. What is the value of sin? And this is where this talk goes to another level. This is where it's okay to get goosebumps, but look at the situation we're in. Could sin be a source of suffering? And could that suffering lead us to a point of where we are, I call it the cornered sufferer, where you are cornered by your suffering, and when you are cornered by suffering, you are very low value, you are devalued, and when you are devalued, you start to notice this life is not lived alone, that the higher power is involved, that whether you like it or not is here. Just like there is the sky, whether you like the sky or not, it is here. You are not the highest power in this world. Do not act. Whoever you are, you could be the greatest narcissist in history, and I will tell you, how does the empty room you've been standing in for years feel? So the suffering is part of the equation to realize that we are limited. That's it. Religion is, spirituality is, feel free in your inner realms until you truly understand the limitation of the situation we're in. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I created mankind and jinnkind for the sole purpose of worshipping me, which means that the value to the human moment of life is not only human, it is as valuable as it can, in some sense, establish a connection with its source. And because the source is not physical, it's not like for Christians is different. I don't know about Christians, but I feel like for you, God is touchable. But as a Muslim, God is nothing human. For I cannot limit what's outside of the box to what's inside the box of reality. That's just my conclusion as a being. That means I was Muslim before I was Muslim. I was looking at the world in the sense of realizing it's not just human beings here, and human beings have been created for the greater purpose of expressing the divine attributes. In the Holy Quran, it says that man is also a vicegerent. I believe the Islamic Arabic term is Khalifa, and what that means is man is an ambassador. Man is here to, in some sense, show everything else in reality how it is then expression of the divine attributes, which translates to expressions of manifestation. You right now are thinking that you're in a physical world. You don't get it. The world is in sectors, and there are sectors to the world that are not this world. That means the dunya is not everything. Where you are right, it's like you're in the lobby of a hotel. You're not in the hotel room. The hotel room is after this life. The main event is after this life. You're here to notice what the main event is, and then the journey of souls to the return, the great return of the souls to their creator, to their original. So the argument of why did God create suffering, let me, in one manner of speech, I can say, so you can notice God. Because if you were in your luxurious cyberspace, imagine in your luxurious paradise, like, do you understand? This is what life has come to in 2025. Either stay in your artificial paradise, or find the original earth, find the original world. What other greater command can come? There are commanders of human armies in history. And then there are prophets which are commanders of human souls. And as a Muslim, I have a commander, but I understand that the commander told me, do not be deceived by the mods, do not be deceived by the worldly. What the enemy is the simulation keeping you here. You don't understand. Your enemy is not something in front of you. Your enemy is how the system has been designed to keep you obsessed about yourself, so you never ask anything beyond yourself. You think you don't need the higher power. You think it is enough to just be an idea in the middle of this vastness. Do you know what it says in the Holy Quran? It says at the end of days, not only Christ will return with an army, I believe, but that the sky will crack, that the simulation will break, that all will be on the same leveled field, that all souls, that means it's like you're an army that went and fought a battle, and at the end of the battle, all the final dictum, what's the term? The ultimate evaluation, in the ultimate evaluation, you're called forth. That means, imagine there's a war, two armies fight, and every person in those armies die. Like it's a stalemate, everybody dies. And then suddenly there's a review. That means all the souls and all the soldiers that fought in the two armies and all the commanding officers, the generals and kings, they all suddenly reanimate. And then there is a review. Okay, let's see how the battle was. Okay, this person failed here. This person forgot to help their comrade in the battlefield here. This person was scared to death on the battlefield. This commanding officer relayed the wrong message. That general made the correct command. You know, the emperor had a flaw in why the war was happening. Do you understand? Whatever being you have been, you will be held responsible not for your actions, for the totality of your being. But that responsibility it's in some sense, you were in an exam room, you step out of the exam room, and at the end of the exam room, the professor is there with your results. And the professor looks at you and says, did you study? And you look at the professor and you say, I have understood the edge of what you have said. And I have seen further. Do you understand? That means, imagine after the war, they're like, What did you feel about the suffering of your comrades? And what would you respond? Do you understand how world leaders have pushed the species into shame? I'm sorry, but when it comes to war on Earth, not only the species has surpassed it, but we're being cuckolded. That means there's mass suffering. There are problems that shouldn't exist, and in some sense we fall. We watch silently. It was having such a burden on me that I had to go and donate. I don't know what agency it was, but I donated to Palestine. I was like, what the F? Like, do you understand? There's a level to reality where it should not happen, some things. And when they happen, they make it feel like F. Like you're like, damn it, man, the original realm got shifted because a being could not be original. Because they wanted success in the world, not where the world was taking them. Let me tell you, do you know what a waterfall of tears is? A waterfall of tears is when none of your nostrils, like every part of your body is normal. Your sinuses and everything is normal. And the tears pour out as if you have seen the immeasurable. When you see if God is merciful enough to show you the higher power, you will see what I'm saying. When there is a fear of the shock of that which is beyond you. It's paralysis. Like you don't understand. To be in the presence of the higher power is like you put a limitless being in front of a limitless being. Excuse me, you put a limited being in front of a limitless being. It's as if in all dimensions broken, but instantly in all dimensions found. In the outer realms, I put my forehead, because I had a knee problem. I bowed for the first time, truly, to the system admin. I was on my bed, okay? And that was when I bowed. Externally, I was just bowing. Internally, my central value system as a being up just shifted. It was as if God was here, I would die for God before having any human idea. You understand? It's the might of the power. Excuse me. It is the presence of the unimaginable, but it's the real. I don't know how to say it. And God is not in, like, how do I say it? It's not like God came and told you, yeah, good job. It's like you are in the sight of the most advanced. And then when you ask yourself, am I the most advanced? Then you see the valley of shame that you covered your eyes from. It's an advanced power. It's a higher power. You break down in front of it. It's not like, yo, man, I just feel love all the time. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing as somebody being in bed with the blanket over them the whole day. You know, spirituality is at the same time an incredible art of escapism. That means they're like show me escape artists. And I'll tell you, the best kind is like the spiritual mystic. That's the great escape artist. Then I don't know, we'll give it to Houdini. I want you to imagine for a second, You were the child of a farmer back in the day in Rome. And you're going to be like, Mr. Within, what does this have to do with anything you were saying? I'll tell you. I want you to imagine for a second you're like this, I don't know, young, like, farmer, okay? A son of a farmer, okay? You're this farmer's son, and you've never been to Rome. And you're on this carriage, and as the carriage as Rome comes into sight, you just get shocked. As if you've never seen human architecture like this. You've never seen the sophisticated of human political mind games like this ever. It's like when you became a citizen of Rome, you could own land. You know, like in ways you couldn't before. And I want you to imagine that you're walking past those stone columns for the first time. And you realize you're standing where a lot of everybody else who's new to Rome, who's shocked, is standing. I'm telling you, imagine you were then invited by the emperor to the palace. Like, it's as if levels of perception not allowed. People don't understand this. Do you know why kings were treated as higher beings? Because nobody was allowed in the palace. Nobody knew like how the king was living, you know, what the king was doing. Do you know? And from a peasant perspective, it's like, yo, man, what's this weird building in the middle of this peasant land, like village? Not village, like in the kingdom. It's a presence. It's a greater presence. God is not an idea. It's not your emotion. Your whole system realizes its insignificance, and whether you like it or not, it's like before you bow to the Creator, every cell, every part, every atom of your being has already bowed to the Creator. It's like the ego's laid to the praise of the central or original power to reality. And the task of me and many future podcasters and people who just care about their world is to, in some sense, make sure that whatever happens, we don't forget the importance. That means, imagine somebody asks me, imagine scientists come and ask me, let's say, I don't know, whatever, let's not create a character here. Let's say they come and ask me, when do you think a meteor is going to hit Earth? And I'll tell you, believe it or not, the time when the meteor hits Earth has nothing to do with like the mathematical time we use throughout the day. It has to do with what sort of behaviors were activated in the system. So, like, for example, in accordance to the Quran, in the sense that if people stopped sinning and like everybody would like failed the test and they would be wiped out, and a new generation of people sinning would come, so they can notice what the sin is making them aware of. Just like how like Vegeta realized Super Saiyan is possible when Goku became Super Saiyan. Do you understand? It's like you have to be conscious of the edge of your power to truly be able to notice that which is the higher power. For me, it was a matter of simplifying reality to a point where the artificial could not exist. I shouldn't say could not exist, where the artificial didn't have value. I'll give you an example. Like, you don't know, my twin brother, somebody who used to be one of my closest friends, and let's say 4 other people who I met on Discord as well, in relating to this stuff. You know how many they've come and told me conspiracy theories about reality, and you don't understand how my ears have become a tunnel where from one ear it goes in, from the other ear it goes out. In the sense that I tell them, are you manufacturing unnecessary fear for yourself right now? Ultimately, it's a decision. That's it. You right now have to decide, do you just want to be a nationalistic, culturally programmed character in a story, or do you want to be a member of the human species that is advancing in the world located on Earth? What honor do you choose? When will you suddenly see that all the human beings you've liked and disliked, they are humans, they are members of your species? It's as if, like, imagine like the Godfather from the first Godfather movie came up to you and was like, hey, it's not terrible Godfather impression, but it's like, the Godfather comes up to you, taps you on the shoulder, you apologize to the Godfather due to Corona, not acting traditionally Italian, you know. The Godfather would come up to you and be like, it's not just your familia, it's the human familia. It's the human family. You got to start feeling that all these human beings that could act ordered and chaotically, they can act like advanced and fucked up, like ignorant. They are your family. Do you understand what that means? That means if I went to school, right? Let's say in a very hypothetical sci-fi parallel universe of Earth future, there's kids going to school, and there's like maybe like in a classroom there's like 5 human kids, there's maybe like 20 android kids, and maybe there's like 3 like AI robot kids. Okay? And imagine if one of the humans was like, the humans would treat each other as if they are family. They're the species is what's making them family. Do you understand? It's what's giving them like a set of like vibe. But the family vibe is not the highest vibe. The greatest vibe is the human empire, but not a human empire where in one moment of history it can declare what it wants to be ultimately. Can the viewers just honestly say, are you following me as I've been talking? Like, do you understand the pictures I've been painting here? Or is it just, am I sounding like an instrument, like, they're like, what did that music mean to you? It's like, I don't know, man. It's like, but if you're asking me where the music teleported me in the inner realms, that's a different question. My view is, like, I have so many reasons why I want to build an advanced civilization. I personally want to build an advanced civilization because I'm like, why isn't it here yet, man? It's like so boring, this. We have to find a way to make it look like as if like there's something bigger. Because if we accept this, it's like any civilization that doesn't update, it's found to doomsday. And I'll be honest, compared to 2000s, in these 10 years where I've been giving the talks, have been perfect years for me to observe how unadvanced we are. People are like, Mr. Within, you were talking about, like, how God sees suffering, and then suddenly, you're like the human familia, and I'm like, because it all ties together. Haven't you realized the edge of my world is the edge of yours? Because they're both at the edge of the same original moment. Do you understand? Let me give you an example. Imagine I created a bunch of robots. I brought I bought this house, and I put these robots in there, and I made them live like a family, and I filmed all of that. Imagine I did that. And then I waited until I came to this point where I'm like, when are these robots gonna ask like who created them? When are they gonna step out of their roles of like mother robot, father robot, daughter robot, son robot, right? Like when are they gonna wake up that they just found themselves in a situation, in an event, and they can choose to identify with the event, but they can realize there are greater events. And Islam, the source code, at least for me as a human being, is telling me this life is, again, the hallway, not the main room. So for me, you don't understand. It's like the human beings, all human leaders can do a bunch of smart chess moves and it could be brilliant right now. Do you understand? It's bizarre because I'm a futurist and a lecturer. So while I give lectures now, I can envision what future lectures will be like, what the future generations will be lectured on. It's obvious to me. Because you don't understand, as a human being, you're tasked with protecting your original nature. What does that mean? That means if aliens start bullying human beings in that classroom, the human species like must represent itself. Do you understand? Like I'm telling you, you are your species. If anybody who likes Star Trek, Star Wars, don't think they're gonna be like, yo, this guy's from like Canada, this guy's from Iran on Earth. No, they'll be like, your species is from Earth. That's it. That's all like galactic children will learn in schools. You know, if they want to be like researchers, they can go and realize, okay, there's a town called this, in the nation called this. You know, like the story. Like, you do understand? Like, this is why I used to say in the talks that if aliens landed down right now and they asked me, like, you know, explain your species. All right. Let the video just go on, guys. Whatever. Where am I going with this? Suffering is equivalent to a caterpillar going inside a cocoon, and biologically all the cells of the caterpillar die and the last cell of the caterpillar remains. And then the last cell of the caterpillar transforms into the first butterfly cell, and a world that was like an apocalypse returns to the original, and from the original there is, in some sense, Genesis. So, because we are in a view where reality is, in some sense, how do I say it? The world is bigger than you can claim. First, understand this. Second, understand what you're standing under is a very advanced system. And there's a huge chance that the civilization we're experiencing now is just the best our ancestors could do and is the first prototype of what human civilization is. Do you know? That means I'm born right now. To me, this world I'm living in, live that's being live streamed, that I'm alive right now in, is civilization 1.0. Like 10,000 years later, a human being may be born, and that world they see, it could be their civilization 1.0. Or consciously, if history has survived that long, it'd be civilization whatever code. So right now, we're in a state where I find that the greatest thing to do is wonder about what is the most advanced way that we can acknowledge being here and being beings. Like what are universities doing? No, I'm telling you, in 2025, universities that are not asking the big questions, that are not trying to constantly bring the big questions about the world and reality to like the organizational systems of the world, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you understand? Like, they're not universities that do not, in some sense, bring to the UN's attention universal problems that need to be solved, are in some sense not universities, they're businesses. Some professor listening to this is like, podcasters are out of control, man. Like, anyways, to dive into it again. You are sacred by simply being here. But you're not sacred because you are a sacred being. You're sacred because you're in, everything is being watched by the creator. Do you know what that means? That means God, excuse me. Oh my God. It means this is not just my moment or your moment, it is also the creator's moment. That means it doesn't matter if anything in the world judges you, because the creator is judging you. And you can have a conscious relationship with the system administrator of reality, do you know? And the issue is, spiritual people they're stuck with the mods. But I'm telling you, if the mods point you to the system admin, they're good mods. That means religion means your attention is to the singularity beyond the world that everything returns to. And while knowing this, you got to live a normal human life too. And how you go about this, I've found, is that it's a matter not of being like how you should be, but it's a matter of being like, what is the most important value for me to acknowledge when I log in to this system every morning? And for me, it's like, acknowledge the system admin as quickly as you can. And it could be as simple as like, just saying hello, or in some sense saying good morning and being grateful in the morning, right? For me, every day I wake up, I'm like, thanks, another day, even though whatever way the day ends, right? But it's cool that it's like we're still in this game right now. It's cool that I'm alive right now. It's cool to me, at least. I mean, it should be. But what I'm saying is, what is cooler is how we're all alive and how that looks like. Do you understand? Like, have you ever wondered about the dawn of an advanced civilization? Have you wondered about the dawn of the advanced humanity? Have you wondered about the dawn of the most advanced relationship advanced beings in an advanced world can have with the most advanced power? You see, religion is pointing to how the game is, and how the game is that there's a system admin, there's mods, and there's you. If you don't value yourself, the mods come and moderate you in the system. Okay, but if you value yourself, that means you wonder about, like, okay, whatever, I am what I am at the end of the day, right? But what am I? Right? And you wonder about how the value of your being as a being is originating at all. To me, it's strange because my being has a value that's like a noun, and my being has a value that's a verb. The noun is self, the verb is humanity. The verb is like, yo, what is my species doing? That means like if I was like in charge of the hospitality department of a hotel and the whole planet was a hotel, I'd be like, okay, what do what do the customers need? Right? And this is like very basic, but in an advanced civilization, it's like, how do you know an advanced civilization is advanced? Because it finds you before you do. You find it. That means if I have been capable at all in any way to give your mind some sort of way to wonder about the advanced future, I have succeeded. The future generations are looking at me right now like, no way, he did that. Do you know, I'm one of those guys that if time travelers were like watching me right now through some sort of, I don't know, beyond my understanding, like surveillance, imagine like a bunch of time travelers in the future are watching me right now and I just stare back and look at them. I'll be like, I see you guys. They'll be like, what? We thought we were from the future. We didn't realize people in 2025 had a mind that could fathom the future. It's the advancement of reality. It's the greatness of being. It's realizing that it does make sense for you to consider yourself as a simple human being with limitations, and it also makes sense to consider that you're not in an empty world or in an empty room. You are present in a place where there's a power greater than you and there's powers lesser than you. And you, as in between the beast and the angel, based on what you choose, you go towards it. Beastly nature means reacting to the simulation. It means the simulation's got him, you know? When I see a violent, angry, savage, like, you know, too extremely emotional person, I'm like, okay, oh my God, the simulation's like got a hold of her. You know, they're gripped by the simulation. But when I see a human being that can laugh at themselves, I'm like, that's an advanced being. That's a smarter person to me. See, the issue is not suffering is good or bad, or right or wrong. It's a matter of like, okay, there's a system. The system looks like this. The system has a certain protocol. When suffering enters the experience of the person, it's because the person is in some sense losing what could be. You don't understand. When somebody gets hurt, their future is getting hurt. All the probabilities of what they could have done is getting hurt. There's an infamous line from Che Guevara as he had this terrifying ending, right? Where he says, you can kill a person, but you cannot kill an idea. What does that mean? That means man is driven by his vision of all there is. And the intelligent among you are not those who have certifications or measured in status. You, the smartest among the human race, are those that notice we're not here alone. That means, guess what? It's not aliens that landed on Earth first. It was that the prophets awakened us to the source. That means an alien is an inferior worldly entity compared to the system admin that is beyond the system. They're like, why are you religious? Because that is the greatest option. There's no other option. Like, I don't see anything else. It's either a religion or an empty room. It's either the highest power is possible or it's not. And I'll be like, look at these. Anytime I see a being inside a simulation convincing others to be like, yo, man, the simulation is the final destination, I'll be like, my God. I wish the microphone could hear what you were saying and like explode. Like the microphone would intentionally suddenly increase its weight and the microphone would fall into the ground. You know? Because to be honest, the responsibility we have, you don't understand. When I'm giving these talks, I understand that they can motivate human action And I also understand that that human action will have an output, an expression, a consequence. And when I wonder about that consequence for the future generations, I do filter it. I don't know why, but I'm just innately doing that. Do you understand? That means we cover the eyes of those who cannot see it, because if they had seen, they would disposition. To me, it's not kind of like there's like like fools and like wise people. To me, it's not like that. To me, it's like there are positions of value. When I look at a religious person, I'm just being like, okay, do you understand we're both acknowledging that there's a higher power here? That the moment's governance is not just limited to what our ego, code, and mind, I guess subjugates as reality, simulates as reality, imposes, I don't know. So anyways, this question of suffering is not about like, yo man, animals have been dying savagely. Where is the compassion of the creator for animals? Like, get out of here, man. Like, we're in a way more bigger, more important situation. We're in the situation that, whatever you want to call yourself, atheist or whatever, you have to consider the relationship of our species in a place that has an owner. But the owner is not form, it's not shaped. That means there is a great higher power. Higher power is like, we're peasant, that's king. But it's important because that's not any king. When you read the names of God in Islam, your mind opens up to all the ways that the presence of the Almighty, how do I tell you? It's like, you don't understand. The Quran is source code. The Holy Quran is like the geometry. It's like a warning and glad tidings for those who believe. It is a confirmation. That means you might not understand. Islam is not just a message, it's an alert. It's a it's like the most important pointer. Because the idea is simply that, is God limited to the world or not? And if it is limited to the world, the simulation is you're still with the mods. You see, and I believe, I'm not a theologian, a Christian theologian, but I believe that there is a geometry there of the trio of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and even though there isn't authentication of the accuracy of this, I guess, ideologically geometrical triangle, but it's the notion that all the levels are equal. Do you understand? But the issue is all the levels are not equal. So Christianity is somewhat, Christ is a great prophet, and peace be upon all the prophets. He's he's a divine being. But the linkage of form, like, how do I explain it? It's kind of like we have, oh my God, how do I say it? We have form and the Son, the Father, the Holy Ghost, the body, mind, soul. Are the body, mind, and soul equal? No. We cannot lie to ourselves. That means the issue is, like, I'm pretty much saying, if we're inside a box right now, we're just basing on our relationship with the original power as simulated beings based on what's in the simulation, what's in the box. What I'm saying, if the system admin is outside of the box, nothing in the box can verify. But there has been an event where source code has been sent, which means the main operating system has called upon sectors of itself to reform. Do you understand? That means right now, God's will is the movement of reality. Yet man's will is within a greater movement. It's like a stream entering a river. That's what becoming religious is. You're acknowledging a higher being. But this being is not limited to what's in the world, so nothing in the world can be that. But there is this side view also, which is important, that God can do anything it wants. So man is limited, inside the limitation of the simulation, but God is unlimited and can do anything in the simulation. That's the fascinating thing about the higher power, that destiny is falls into how God is all-knowing. Only an all-knowing being can, in some sense, like, how do I say it? Like, imagine you're someone who creates a system. You can delete the system and you have access to everything in the system. You see everything. And now you're waiting to see if what you've created notices you. God is great beyond what man can imagine. That is what reverence is. You're in the presence of the Almighty. We're all in the presence of the Almighty right now. And our conscious relationship through religious code, it's like you don't understand. More than what understanding is, like phrases organized. Understanding is accepting that you have to know it. I cannot be alive and not know this higher power. But when I wonder what the higher power is, it's nothing in the world. So what do I do in the world? What relationship can I have as a being inside a simulation with the original being? I have to stop simulating myself. And that's the humility that comes with religion. That's God first. And then whatever we do here. So that's the main transformation. Even people who've been listening to my talks for a while, like, they've been journeying on, climbing this mountain with me, like, pretty much it's I understand that there's a system admin here. I acknowledge the system admin, and I all realize, since everything is returning to the system admin, my conduct is for the system admin. So it's kind of like being like, okay, as a human being, I gotta deal with myself, I gotta deal with my species, I gotta deal with the world, and I gotta deal with how they're all in the presence of the higher power. And to understand that my relationship as a being that can notice the higher power is to acknowledge the higher power. Trust me, just realize that you are not the end of your world, and you'll be fascinated by just the words higher power. Anyways, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A'udhu billah shaitan ar-Rajim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. May God protect us from the cursed one and from ignorance, and guide us towards purity. Purity and being present with God. May God protect us from the cursed one. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Guys, this sentence, every time I say it, I feel like all creation praising the Absolute. Like, it's one of the most beautiful, but it's just pointing to this notion Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. And then we acknowledge ourselves. Rabbi Gfirli. May God forgive us for the sins we're conscious of and the sins we're not. We're imperfect beings in the presence of the Ultimate. Acknowledging the Ultimate is important. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide us to in the most advanced way. My species, I am waiting for you. Just like how all the future generations that stare at you now are. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. There is nothing in this simulation that could be a partner, no form, shape, anything in the simulation that could be equal to this higher power. The worldly is the lower power. We're in the lower power world right now, but technically because we're being watched by the higher power, we're in the presence of the highest power world. Thank you. Have a great day.